The red on the white is starting to grow on me. I like that. I like the shimmery. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how I stitched out this pretty applique design onto a t-shirt using heat transfer vinyl and thread. And the thread is from Embroiered. I use the 602, which is kind of like a white color, but they do have a color number 401 that's an even more brighter white. So anyways, let's get started. Okay guys, so for this project I'm going to be using my 7x12 embroidery hoop for the VE 2200. I am going to be using a no-show poly mesh stabilizer. This is not the fusible kind, but you can use the fusible if you like, but I don't have any fusible right now, so I'm going to use this. I am going to be using just a basic Gildan t-shirt. I'm going to be using some regular bobbin thread. I'm going to be using the Rich World single needle or home embroidery thread. That is a polyester thread, and this number is 602, which is the white thread. I'm also going to be using some glitter heat transfer vinyl. This is the Caesar glitter vinyl, and this is the color red. Now, I am going to just tell you now, you do have to take this carrier sheet off, okay? You do not want to try embroidering through this plastic. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this off now so that you'll see that it does peel away. Sorry about all that sound effect, but I'm going to be using just the glitter. Now this side of course is going to be up, and this side is going to be against the shirt. So that is what I'm going to do. Before I get started with hooping the hoop with some stabilizer, I dropped my shirt. I am going to press it. I'm going to press this t-shirt right down the center so that I'll have a nice center line so that I can line it up on the hoop. Is that lint? No. But anyways, so that I can center it on the hoop. So I'm going to press it out and I'll be back. Okay, so I am back, and I have pressed a little bit of a crease in it. There was kind of a crease in it already, so I just kind of made sure that it was something I could see. So I didn't tell you that I would actually be looking for where the placement is going to be on this shirt. And there are a couple of ways that you can find the placement for the top of the design to be stitched at. Some people use a 3 or 4 finger method where they'll put 3 fingers or 4 fingers just below that collar line where the collar is stitched at the bottom there. They'll put their finger there, and then they'll make just below that 3rd finger the top of where your design will be stitched at. There are some different tools that they have on Amazon and different sewing places where you can use these little tools to measure where you're going to be putting it at. And so this would have been 4 of my fingers for the placement to be right there. So there are different ways that you can determine where you're going to place the top of your design at when you're stitching. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to get my tailor's chalk, but that I forgot about, and I am going to use it to mark the top, not the top, the bottom there, which is where the top of the design is going to be stitched. So I'm just gonna, I want it to be about right there, so I'm just a little dot right there. The tailor's chalk, you can brush it out, wash it out, it will come out. And so now I know that this is the center top of where I want that design to be. And I'm sorry, you probably can't see it very well because I chose a gray shirt, but right here, there's a little blue mark. So I'm gonna float this project. I'm not gonna actually hoop the shirt itself. And it's just in personal preference. You can you know, put the stabilizer down or fuse the stabilizer to the back of the shirt, on the inside of the shirt, I should say, and then hoop it. But this is how I'm going to be doing this, okay? I'm going to put my stabilizer over there and just cut enough so that there is some hanging over. Now, this is probably as short as you want the stabilizer as far as the width, because you want to make sure that it is tight all the way around. And 8-inch wide stabilizer definitely would not have cut it with this. But I'll leave links to what I'm using in the description, of course. And I just want to make sure that the stabilizer is tight in there. And so what I'm going to do now is I am going to float this shirt so that I can stitch it. I am literally going to be putting the hoop inside here. I feel like I'm going to knock those off my table. I'm going to put the hoop inside here. And once it's inside, I try to straighten it up and then line it up to where you have those little notches that are inside the hoop here. There's a little notch right there. That's your center line. So I try to line it up so that everything is even and lined up with that. And then, let's see here, let's pull it over, because that's definitely not centered. Okay, and so now I am going to scoot this up so that I'll be stitching where I need it to stitch at. This is going to be the top of the design. And the beautiful thing about these hoops is you can feel through it to feel where that center mark is so that you're not getting it real crooked. That's the center. So I need that to come over this way a little bit. And then the thing about having that center line ironed in, that crease ironed in, it'll help you so that you can use that crease line to follow to the bottom center marking so that you'll know that your shirt is lined up straight. Even though at this angle I feel like it's a little crooked, but I think it's okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is very carefully, I'm going to just put some pins all the way around the edges so that it holds it in place. I'm just going to be using some straight pins. And if you're not really good with using straight pins, you may want to just use some temporary adhesive spray so that you're not sticking your fingers. You definitely want to be careful with these. And I just want to try to get the main points pinned in place before I go through and pin all the other parts. I can feel the stabilizers kind of folded over on this, so I am gonna unfold it up under there. Okay, that feels good. Put some more pins in here, straight pins. And now I'm just going to go through and get it all pinned down so that it doesn't shift and it should stitch pretty well. But like I said, you can hoop it the way these hoops were designed to be hooped, with the shirt sandwiched between the top and the bottom hoop. That is, you know, how it's supposed to be done. Or you could use some temporary adhesive spray to help float it, but this is what works for me. Yeah, I do need one right there. And I am making sure that I'm not hooping, not pinning the front of the shirt to the back. That would defeat the point. And so now I'm just going to use some of the smaller straight pins to pin down some of the places where there's a little bit of slack in there, like these corners here. And I think 1, 2 more should do it. Okay, so you see that it is pinned all the way around. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the machine, I'm going to put my bobbin in, and I am going to thread the white thread so we can start this design. Okay guys, so we are getting ready to get set up on the machine, and full disclosure, I picked my shirt up to look at it and it was crooked, so I did, sorry I bumped the camera, but I did end up repositioning on the hoop and repinning it down because it would have been really crooked. So I just went on and did that, but I wasn't gonna just record that because it's the same thing. I just had to make sure that it was straight. So I am taking out the threads from whatever my last project was, and I am gonna move those. And the bobbin, it just drops in. It goes in this way so that it goes in, and this kind of swings around. So I'm going to drop that in. And I think I have some old videos where I show threading the machine and putting the bobbin in up close. Then I'm going to put the thread down on here. Some people say that they don't need a thread stand for the cones. I prefer it. And you know, that's the beautiful thing about any type of creative thing. You do what works best for you. And there is a auto thread button on this machine. So I will pull that loop and trim a little so that we don't have all that extra hanging. And then I'll get rid of these things so that they're not in the way. So now I am going to just pull up my design. Let's see, I can't zoom in any closer, sorry. So let's see here. I need to make sure it's the right size because I went through all the sizes. And so we're going to select the biggest one, which is for the 8x12. There is a rotate button, and I'm just going to hit the 90-degree button one time, and it will rotate it once. And then I'm going to close that screen. Now, because of the way the design is set up, there are 3 different colors, and with a single needle, those 3 different colors will tell the machine to stop. So, and on a multi-needle, I can show you that later. On the multi-needle, you'll need to add those stops to make sure that you can stop and do the applique. But on the single needle, each individual color it's gonna stop anyways. So if you have to change your thread color, that's when you would do it, okay? And so now we're gonna get this shirt on here. I do need to flip it a little bit so that it's not gonna get stitched on the back. So this will be kind of up, but you'll see in just a minute. Gotta slide that in there and then make sure that it clears your presser foot. And we get no action if it's not locked, so we always want to lock it down on the side. And then straighten this out so that it's not going to get into the stitch field. Now with smaller shirts, you may have to pin it a little bit, get a little more creative with it. Let's see here, what do I have going on here? Oh, I pinned part of the front to the back in my rush. Okay, so now that's clear. Let's see if I could get this closer. Okay, I'll get this, make sure that's clear. And this may be a case where I have to get those chopstick things out, those dials, so that our fingers aren't going into the stitch field. And just kind of make sure that the shirt doesn't get stitched in the areas that it shouldn't be stitched in, okay? Definitely be safe. I know I've got some videos where I just put my finger in there like it's nothing. But I do realize that there are some people that will watch your videos, and I don't want people to be like, oh, well, if she stuck her finger in there while the machine was going, I can too. Don't be like me. Okay, so to ensure that it's going to stitch where you want, this machine does have a trace feature on it that you can literally go through and see where everything is going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit the button so that I can see where the top is going to be, and that's going to be a little too high. So I'm going to close it and I'm just going to move it down. Oh, that's as low as it's going to go. So I think that'll be okay. We're going to go ahead for the sake of time and stitch this and see how it comes out. Okay. Let me hit stop because one of my straight pins popped loose. And this is where using some adhesive spray might help, but I try to use that stuff as little as possible because I'm not a fan of the adhesive spray. So I'm just going to take that out and we'll see if I can hold the dial. That's the heart, which is the second part. Then we'll do the third, which is another X. gonna move this back a little bit. I moved the thread nanny, or whatever you call it, the thread stand, back a little bit so that it wouldn't get knocked over by the hoop, because I wasn't thinking about how much the frame would be moving around. We got real close on that one. Okay, so that is step one that has been stitched out. And let me see if I could get the camera closer, because I did, I used a white thread for everything, just to not be changing the thread over and over again. But if you look, you can see that there is a stitch line right here. And so you've got your white thread that you'll be able to see in person depending on what you're stitching on. But that is going to give you your mark where you're going to lay your applique fabric, material, whatever you choose to use, into that spot. So today we're going to be using the Glitter HTV, which is by Caesar. And I am now going to just stitch this on top here. The one thing for sure is that it picks up strings. But remember, we already took the transfer sheet or the carrier sheet off. So it's just the vinyl with the part that adheres with the heat that faces down on your shirt, or you know, whatever you're going to be stitching onto. So I need to make sure it's covering all of the lines as far as the placement stitch. And then we're going to go ahead and lower the presser foot and stitch that tack down stitch. That was just close enough. As far as being on the edge, I thought it was going to miss and I would end up with some part that didn't have any glitter in it, but it just covered it. This is the side I want to make sure nothing is going to end up getting pulled into the stitch field. This heart is a little skinnier than I wanted the heart to be, but I like it. I didn't want it to look like everybody else's heart, so I just figured I would make it a little skinnier just for the sake of it being a little bit different. Okay, so this is the point where if you were using fabric or anything that, you know, you needed to make sure that the edges were trimmed before the satin stitch, that it doesn't tear easy. If it's something that doesn't tear easy is what I'm saying. You would then go through and you would trim all the way around all of these tack down lines so that only the actual design pieces are in here. But because this is heat transfer vinyl and it tears very easily, I'm gonna skip that step for now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let the satin stitch all the way through. And once the satin stitch is done, then I am going to just rip the excess off, and I'll show you how I do that. But now this is the longer part of the stitch out because it's all the satin stitches and it does take some time. So I'll record so much of it and then I'll come back towards the end, okay? So we're gonna lower that presser foot and we're gonna hit start so it can get started. I think the total stitch time, my machine is saying the total stitch time is 66 minutes. And so we definitely don't wanna sit here and watch a whole hour's worth of needle stitching, do we? Or do we? And it's set up with a nice wide satin stitch. And that is just because I know sometimes it's depending on the materials that you're using, you may need a wider satin stitch just to ensure that everything is going to be covered the way you need it to be. And so I just set it up with a wider satin stitch, and I want to say that it is a 4 millimeter, maybe 4.5. I can't remember. I have to look at the file. But it's just going through and stitching everything out. I know I hate watching videos where people don't talk about what they're doing, and then sometimes I'm sitting here like, well, what exactly should I be talking about while it's just stitching and there's really nothing else to talk about, except we got snow in the Atlanta area yesterday, and yeah, I didn't need that. The kids were outside playing in snow, building snowmen. It was nice, you know, seeing the kids having fun out there. But I moved from the Midwest because I didn't want to deal with that type of weather. Then my husband went out to the truck this morning and he's like, remember all those snow scrapers that we had? And we threw them away about 10 years ago because that's probably the last time we needed them. They're either thrown away or they're in the shed somewhere because we couldn't find them. But that was the highlight of our weekend. Got snow in Atlanta. Now, I know some people may be like, well, why are you doing a Valentine's design on a t-shirt? Preference, you know, just wanted it on a t-shirt. It can very well be stitched out on a t-shirt, on a sweatshirt. And that's the one thing about applique. You can put it on just about anything that you can stitch your design on, fit your design on. And jazz up just about anything. T-shirt, sweatshirt, put it on a bag. Because this is in smaller designs as well. I set the files up for 4x4, 5x7, 6x10, and 8x12 is what the file is set up for, but this machine is a 7x12, so it fits. And the actual size of the actual stitch out, of course, is less than the actual hoop size. But it'll be listed in the files or descriptions if anybody is curious about that. And I mean the listing description is what I should say. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should have went with a black thread so that it would stand out against the gray. Or maybe I should have gotten a black shirt so that I could do the red and the white trim. We live and learn, don't we? So I am going to let this go ahead and stitch out, and I'll pick up with the video as it advances a little bit further. Okay guys, I'm just checking in, and the first X has been stitched out, and it is now stitching the heart, the satin stitch on the heart. So it's moving along. So far, haven't had any problems. Just trying to make sure that when it gets to the top, that the top of the shirt doesn't fall into the stitch field. Now, you could ideally pin it so that it doesn't flip forward, or you could tape it, but I'm just going to keep my eye on it. Okay, so we are back to the table. I've taken the shirt off of the hoop, and now I'm going to go through and take these pins off. I could have taken the pins off before, but I didn't. And I just want to make sure I find all of them. And let's see here. I'm just peeking to make sure nothing's hidden. Okay, so now, like I was saying before, if you're using a fabric as your applique, you would definitely want to trim before you went through and did that final satin stitch. But because this is glitter, I'm just going to, it's the glitter HTV, I'm just going to go through and rip it, and it will perforate right along the edges. And some people will ask, well, what will keep the inside from perforating and ripping out? And what I'm going to do with the inside, once I get all of this excess glitter cleaned up, I'm going to go through and I'm going to press it from the inside out. I will trim this stabilizer, and then I am going to turn it inside out or press it inside out so that the heat adhesive activates and it causes that bond between the glitter vinyl and the shirt. I think this would have looked better with black thread for sure, but in my mind I was thinking, ooh, the white thread would be pretty. And so you can use tweezers to get down into these little pieces, or just your fingers, your fingernails. But I just want to get as much of that excess glitter out of there so that it's not sticking, or, you know, when I press it, it won't stick down. You don't want that showing on the edges. Okay, I'm going to throw that out. And I just want to see if there's any more that's sticking out that I can get pulled out without pulling the threads. You know, you don't want to tear your threads up. It happens sometimes, but when your fingernails get caught up in there. And I'm just trying to fold this so that I can get to that glitter that's stuck down in there. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my heat press after I get as much cleaned up as I possibly can to press from the inside out. But before I do that, I'll go over this with a lint brush just to make sure any little pieces of glitter don't get pressed that don't need to be pressed. And let's see here, turn this inside out. I'm going to trim this. And just be careful when you're trimming so that you don't cut your garment or whatever you're stitching on. Now, when I do towels and things like that, I use a tearaway stabilizer, so I could just literally tear it all out. But while I've always heard that rule, if you wear it, don't tear it. Rules are made to be broken. It just depends on what you're stitching, because I have stitched some hoodies and things with a heavy tearaway that have lasted pretty decently. So it just depends. I think about some of those old embroidery rules, like the stitches, the stitch count, people charging per stitch count. There's no way I could charge $3 per 1,000 stitches or something for a t-shirt. This t-shirt was 2,761 stitches. So you do the math on that. It's just different people have different rules, and some follow that, some don't. I don't, because it would make things way more expensive than they have to be. But definitely charge your worth if you are making these to sell, okay? So this is what it's looking like so far. So I'm going to turn this inside out, take it to the heat press, and I'm going to press it from the inside out, okay? Okay, so we are all finished with this shirt. I did press this according to the manufacturer's instructions as far as time and temperature. I did press it inside out, however, so it was just literally pressed on the back side. So I also trimmed the stabilizer so there wasn't so much stabilizer all over. You can see where I trimmed it. And then what else can I tell you? That is it. I mean, definitely I like it with the glitter. It may work with flock, but it'll definitely work for fabric as well. So I will do a different video where I show how to do the applique using fabric, and maybe the smaller design, because I have this design for a 4x4 frame as well. So anyways, that is it for this video, and if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments, and until next time, you all take care of yourselves.